The Browns offseason continues. There's OTAs, but there's some news. We have a former Browns player returning to the team. Somebody else leaves, a veteran maybe on the bubble. And I want to talk about this kickoff rule and what it might mean on who's actually doing the kicking. Plus, lots of fantasy football talk and previews coming up right now on the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
In the backfield, Latavius Murray. Huntley takes the shotgun snap. Back to pass. Looks. The ball got stripped away. In the air. The Browns fight for the ball. And it's picked up by Myles Garrett. He's going to score. Touchdown.
It's going to be sick.
Welcome, Browns fans, everybody. Fantasy football enthusiasts. How y'all doing? Andy Mack with you. We're grinding through this offseason, right? The OTAs, they're thrown against air. How's Deshaun Watson looking? Some videos looks good, some not so good. Still recovering, whatever. I'm going to have in a few minutes fantasy football big-time preview with my guy Nate Cheatham from IDP Guys and one of the founders, or rather one of the organizers of the Fantasy Football Expo. So we'll get into that in a few minutes' time. First of all, though, I got to point out, check this shirt out from our new buddies at Homage. I got the sticker back there. This is, let's see if I can show here, Autogram. How you like it? Boom. That type of unique. We're going to be working a lot with Homage this year. This is this just came in the mail today, so I'm very excited. I love this shirt. Autogram. Oh, 10 years in the league, 10 championship appearances, 6 championships. Can I have that, please? Please. You know, can I have one? Can I get one appearance, one championship? Maybe. But anyway, that's our buddies at Homage. We'll learn much more about that. Some Browns news. An old face returning to the team. Remember DeQuell Jackson, longtime linebacker for the Browns. He has returned in a full-time capacity as a pro scout with the team. Absolutely loved it. Who else loved DeQuell Jackson? He was one of my favorites. Just one of those steady tackle machine defenders, right? He'll just get all the tackles he had. I'm just looking here for his Browns career. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of 100+ tackles. Just a machine. Drafted second round 2006. Played with them till 2013. Then went to the Colts. And remember, DeQuell Jackson, outside of the Browns, probably most famous for exposing Deflategate with Tom Brady and the Patriots. Remember that, right? DeQuell's claim to fame. Well, now he's back with the team in a pro scout capacity. So that is really cool. I was happy to see DeQuell Jackson coming back. Also, Joel Bitonio, future Hall of Famer, probably. Perennial Pro Bowler. Guard, battled through a lot of injuries last year. And he spoke with the media and he said, look, I'm not intending to retire, but I have less years ahead of me than I do behind me in year 11. So with that and Wyatt Teller's contract going to be popping up a bunch next year, makes more sense when you think about it with Zittner being drafted out of Michigan for Andrew Berry. So hopefully Joel Bitonio, you can have guards if you stay healthy into your mid-30s, 32 years old. And boy, it's one of those things where it can just go. Remember Joe Thomas, right? All the 11 years, tricep goes, poof, he's gone and we lost a Hall of Famer. So appreciate Joel Bitonio. Some roster news. The Browns have waived, nothing too exciting, third kicker, Lucas Havrisik. Lucas Havrisik, who was on the practice squad a bit last year, got signed, came back in. Maybe he ends up back on the squad again. Extra leg, I guess, in OTAs. But that means that Cade York, yes, old Cade, sometimes hero, many times villain, re-signed by Andrew Berry, is back. And with Dustin Hopkins, remember he had that hammy injury. You're one injury away from Cade York. I wonder with this new kickoff rule if teams are going to keep more than one kicker, because in the XFL, this is coming from the special teams coordinator, I believe Dave Tube, I think, from Kansas City, who said he went back and watched every single, because this new kickoff rule comes from the XFL, the now defunct XFL, what they used, a variation of it, where you have the landing zone, you have two, I'll go through the rules briefly in a second. But the fact that on those plays, how it's set up, the kickers were involved in the tackle, whether it's missing the tackle, making the tackle, right in the vicinity, having the chase down, 23 to 40% of the time on kickoffs, meaning the kicker is not just going to be a standard by anymore. He's not just going to be standing there watching. You might have to get involved. That makes me nervous. That's why Kansas City said they are going to try out one of their safeties as the kicker, because you don't need necessarily the booming leg anymore on the kickoff, because you send it out of the end zone. That's going to put the ball on the 30, right? You have to have it in that landing zone, that inside in the 20, that landing zone with the two receivers. So if you have a safety, what the Chiefs were doing, who filled in as a kicker last year when Butker got dinged up, then you have an extra tackler. So if you can train a special teams guy, somebody who can contribute, but who can tackle a defender, what an advantage that could be. Somebody who's actually going to go and tackle. And then if he gets hurt, it's not the end of the world because it's not your field goal kicker. So I wonder what the Browns and other teams are going to do about that. Because that was really interesting with the kicker being involved that many times in tackles from the XFL. I wonder what that could mean and what the Browns might do for it, because you also want, Bubba Vitrone has said, Browns special teams coordinator, he wants to have, and rightfully so, that ball up and down as close to the goal line as possible without going in, so that the return guys have to play it, and you get that advantage. Let me just quickly zip through, then we'll get to my guy Nate Cheatham from IDP Guys. Get your fantasy football preview. Oof, can't wait for that. Fantasy football season coming up very, very soon. Okay, so in case you haven't heard it, this is coming from our buddy Tony Grossi from ESPN Cleveland, many-time guest friend of show. So he outlined it here, okay? Every member of the kicking team except the kicker lines up on the receiving team's 40-yard line. So we're past that on the 40-yard line. The receiving team has 9 players lined up between its 35 and 30-yard lines. Receiving team has 2 returners splitting the field. That's in that landing zone. The kicker kicks the ball from his 35-yard line, from his team's 35, to a landing zone between the receiving team's 20-yard line and goal line. The kicking team cannot move until the ball lands in the landing zone or is touched by the receiving team. This, of course, hoping to avoid those high-speed collisions rushing at each other. And this is where you get rid of those kickoffs, because one of the reasons this was done, apparently, Super Bowl, there were 13 kickoffs, all 13 touchbacks. It's not a play. It wasn't a play. It was boring, right? Kickoffs are you go to the bathroom, you fill up your snack bowl. Not anymore. If the ball is kicked short of the landing zone or out of bounds, it is placed on the 40-yard line. So severe penalty. If the ball is kicked in the landing zone and rolls into the end zone or is downed by the receiving team, comes out to the 20-yard line. So if it bounces and rolls, that's not bad. If the ball is kicked through the air and into the end zone and is downed, it comes out to the 30-yard line. So it's going to have something where I think we're going to have to see it in preseason. It actually gives preseason games kind of an importance, a reason to watch, to understand this. Tricky to say and go over. I think I visualize it. I get it. And the idea is to create where you have to return the ball. And the returners are going to have lots of room to get a running start. Are we going to see laterals, pass back, gadget plays? The special teams coordinators are frothing at the nose. Bubba Vitrone's jacked about it. You got Mike Vrabel in there too, helping assist him. So that's going to be very interesting from the kicker standpoint, the strategy. What if I would think now, especially if this tackling percentage is correct, you have to have more than one kicker. You just have to. Dustin Hopkins, remember the one time he ran after in the Houston game, tore his hammy or hurt his hamstring, was out. So that's going to be very interesting to follow and gives me an interest in these preseason games. So it could actually give the kickoff a purpose again and make it exciting. So we'll see how that goes. So that's the Browns news. Make sure, folks, you're clicking subscribe, notifications on, follow us on social media on X at AndyMC81, at SickPodBrowns, Instagram and TikTok at AndyMC Sports. Leave a comment. What do you think about DeQuell Jackson coming back? Pro Scout. The Browns now being with their 2 kickers, Dustin Hopkins and Cade York. Joel Bitonio, closing end of the career. And then this kickoff rule. I'd be really interested to know your thoughts on the kickoff rule and the kicker possibilities, getting a non-kicker, the tackling, the rule as a whole. So leave those comments. Hit us up on social. Now, let's bring in the man, fantasy football expert. He is a founder and co-owner of IDP Guys, IDP Plus. He is a huge part of organizing the Fantasy Football Expo every year out of Canton, Ohio by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Let's bring in my guy, Nate Cheatham, right now and have a little chit chat. Nate, how's it going, buddy?
What's going on, Andy? Thank you for having me on.
Oh, love it, buddy. It's been a long time, been a couple years since the Expo, and I intend very soon to get back down again and work it because we'll get to the Expo soon because it is just I cannot stress enough for the fantasy football fan how exciting and amazing it is, and the great just the work you and Bob Lung do. It's timeless and it goes on. So we'll get to that. But your take first. I was mentioning about the kickoff rule, kicker possibilities. I wonder what depending in your fantasy league, if you get points for returns, like what do you make of this as far as just the overall aspect of it and the fantasy fallout potential?
Well, I mean, you're returning excitement to a play that has been dead and dying for a couple seasons now. I remember watching last season going, they've just completely screwed this up. I wonder how they're going to fix it. And hey, this might be the fix. And it's not the first time the NFL has looked to other leagues to solve an issue and create something that, it makes the fan experience better.
Yeah.
And being able to watch an exciting kickoff, okay, so we're not going to have the big, plays, the explosive crashes that we've had, like 10 years ago. But at least they're going to be forced to come out with it. And if you play in a league with return yards, I mean, that's going to be important. As well as, the Chiefs said that they might have a safety. If you play IDP, if a safety's kicking and they make a tackle, I mean, that should still count as a tackle. So, and it's probably going to be a lower value player that they're going to put in that position. And so there's a chance, a possibility that, a player, safety or defender or whatever, who maybe doesn't get as many tackles usually has an opportunity to be a little bit more valuable.
Interesting. Yeah, that's true. You put him in because all these guys are premier athletes. We forget. Like, if you're in the NFL, you were the best player on your high school team. Like, duh. You were one of the best players on your college team. So all these guys, so many of these guys would have played quarterback or multiple positions because they're so talented and being able to do that. So that's going to be really, really interesting on that front. And then on the, fantasy football, kickers aren't exciting, but they can make a difference. And so we have to think as well, if you're drafting somebody and they don't have a backup or that other option. And like I said, that stat I said off the top where the Chiefs special teams coordinator said on the XFL kickoffs, up to 40% of the time, the kickers were involved in some capacity in the tackle. We know, Nate, kickers go after runners, they get hurt. Like, that's got to be in the back of our mind when we're thinking about what kicker to draft.
Yeah, in a position that's as volatile, there's a lot of leagues where they're getting rid of kickers altogether. Yeah. It'd be very interesting if they could somehow use this to the advantage in fantasy to stabilize that position. Obviously you got your Justin Tuckers, your high-end kickers who, for whatever reason, are always scoring field goals and getting all of their extra points for like 30 points, at the end of it. But if you could add in tackles because they're on the field and they have to make a tackle and maybe they get, 2 or 3 of them in a game. And if your scoring has that ability and it's like, that could be an additional 8 points, 6 to 8 points right there. So
what about like a team kicker option with these tackles almost? That just popped in my head. Like if you have the Browns and then if they have or let's say the Chiefs, if they have the 2 kickers, you got Butker kicking field goals, you got the safety making tackles, but you have a team, like a team defense, right? Mm-hmm. Team kicker. And then whoever's doing what, you get that. That might be an interesting wrinkle too. It'll be fascinating to see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if it'll affect, the team defenses because that does include special teams. So would we start to see more tackles possibly on that?
Look at us deep dive into fantasy kicking. Who thought? It's June. Why not? Yeah. All right, let's get into the good stuff here and look at some fantasy football previews because now we're in that next phase before there's tackling in practice, whatever. We've seen the rookies are in. We've started to hear some news out about different players with their teams. Free agency's done. Contracts are getting extended, yada, yada. So now let's look at, from each position group, Nate, let's look at a guy who maybe you think is undervalued or overvalued the other way, that might be a value when it does come to fantasy football drafting time? Let's start with quarterback. Who's your guy?
Yeah, so you'll notice I've got a little bit of a bias because I am a Detroit Lions fan.
Right.
And so I'm going to go off the top with Jared Goff, who's coming in at the most recent ADP, quarterback 18. So now you're talking about, that's QB 2.5 almost.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep. And that, it seems to me that not only does Jared Goff he's proved it. He's got the skill in that scheme. He produces QB1 results, but that position has always been undervalued going back to Matthew Stafford. And I think a lot of it has to do, and I'm sure you understand it as a Browns fan, but just the feeling of, well, the Lions are terrible. They're never going to be good. I'm not going to grab the Lions player.
Right.
That overlooking mentality of, because they play for this team, I'm not going to draft that player. And so they fall way below. You get that value. And then Jared Goff just signed a massive deal for a great extension, feeling very confident in what he's got going on. And trust me, when Matthew Stafford left the Lions and Jared Goff came in, I was not a fan.
Right.
I was a fan of the deal. That was great. We got a lot of pieces from it, but Jared Goff was not my quarterback, but he proved it to me last year to the point that I was in the crowd at that first playoff game in Detroit shouting Jared Goff. And it was electric. It was amazing, and we won that game by the hair of our teeth. And so he's one of those players that I'm picking up. Maybe he's the second quarterback I grab if I'm in a super flex, or especially in like a best ball format. Great opportunity right there. But if you're just in a regular redraft league, you can take better pieces earlier on and wait at quarterback and grab Jared Goff probably mid draft and get a quarterback one player.
Well, yeah, and while everyone else is reaching for, somebody always reaches, right? What I always say, Nate, is you have to know. We can give you the general theories and strategies for drafting, but you have to know your own league. Is there some guy is going to reach for a quarterback in the first round? You just know. Jimmy's going to do it, right? It's going to happen, and you have to know your league. So while people are doing that, you're right. Fill out your roster and get a guy who's going to be just as good, if not better, than somebody taken a few rounds ahead. My guy, in a similar sort of capacity, I think he's gotten a bad rap, and I love the potential with the new head coach, Justin Herbert. QB 15 right now. This guy has Josh Allen talent. He's just been surrounded by horrific coaching. Now you get Harbaugh in. Are the weapons around him the most exciting right now? No, but I think the Harbaugh mentality, that winning mentality, we see wherever that guy goes, especially the first year, boom, there's an uptick. And he's got so much talent. So that's a similar mindset to you. I think you can wait and get Justin Herbert. And boy, if a couple things go right, this guy could be putting up top 5 fantasy numbers, man. He's got the arm, he's got the legs, he's that good.
Absolutely. And it's an extension from before him as well, Phillip Rivers. He could do the same thing. He could put up the points. He could be a top 5 quarterback, and just was not given the respect. Was not put any respect on his name. And Herbert comes in. He had a lot of expectations on him. Didn't necessarily live up to it. That team just kind of fell apart. And here we are into Harbaugh coming in, and I have a lot of he would be another person that I would be grabbing in the same vein.
So let's move on to wide receiver, because wide receiver is becoming one of the more interesting fantasy spots for me, Nate, because each year in the draft, we see a flood of so much talent coming into the league, like superstars year after year. And then I think there is an option where you kind of forget about certain players because they're not the new shiny toy to a certain degree. But there's so many options. Landing spot is key. Who's your guy you're either liking, not liking at wide receiver?
So here we go again. You jumped into the next lion on my list. This is Jamison Williams at wide receiver 47. He's being overlooked primarily because of his placement on the field in the depth chart and not his talent. You talk about a guy with exceptional talent, exceptional speed, and Jamison Williams. He came into the league, he was injured, missed half a season, placed a sports bet and lost another half a season. But coming back into the league last season, he was on a tear of multiple 10, 15 point games. And for somebody so cheap, wide receiver 47, that's your fourth wide receiver. He's already on your bench. So you got a bench player that could possibly put up some big numbers. He's coming in, going to have a full season this year with Jared Goff, who he loves to air it out, and Jamison Williams has the hands to bring it in for multiple touchdowns. If you're in a touchdown only league, something along those lines, he's a great player to have. And definitely for that cost, you can grab him, put him on your bench, and swap him in and out. If he doesn't work out, you've paid almost nothing for him, and he's a great talent.
Yeah, low risk, high reward. I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown of the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is an area I feel we can really sink our teeth into, because he's in PPR around WR40, right? So again, sort of the same deal. Guy doesn't work out, fine. But opportunity equals success in fantasy football, Nate, as we know. Let's look at this. Rashee Rice, that guy's getting suspended for some amount of games. He's got problems. Okay, so we cross him out. Travis Kelce has taken a step back. Still going to be a major factor, but he is over the peak of the mountain, and he's on his way down. Mr. Taylor Swift is on his way down. Xavier Worthy, I love the guy, but he's slender. He's a rookie. Is he going to be a gadget guy? I don't think he's going to have the durability to necessarily, not that Marquise Brown is the biggest guy in the world, but you got to figure out 165 what Worthy is. Kadarius Toney stinks. Justin Watson, okay, boring. Hollywood Brown's right there for the picking. He's right there. You can have him as your potentially WR1 and get him in the mid rounds. It's just, I just love that value there for Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, and after Chiefs let Tyreek Hill go, they have been needing a solid receiver in their passing game, and going and grabbing and getting Brown just fills that gap, and it just makes sense. And for him to be overlooked, pick him up, grab him. He's one of those players you got to get.
Yeah, you gotta get him there. All right, let's move to running back. Not a great year as far as popping wow talent running back wise out of the draft. You had a lot of moving pieces, right? And we know with running back, you can be a superstar one year, gone the next, and an absolute non-factor. So what are you thinking at running back for fantasy?
So one of the guys that, and here's my first non-Lion, and so it's another a value pick here with Derrick Henry going to Baltimore. There's a lot of negative topics on him from, is he going to have all of his touchdowns sniped from, Lamar Jackson there? Just a lot of just negative feeling going on. But Derrick Henry, he is getting into the, closing in on the end of his career and everything, but I think he's got a couple years left in him, and I think he wants to prove that he can come in, he can be that guy. And why would Baltimore go in, grab a player like that, just to have him, not carrying those touchdowns, not be electric on the field? And so they've had multiple years of their running backs just having crazy injuries that
J.K. Dobbins. Oh my gosh.
They have not been able to put together this running back room, and so now they got Henry, and I think they're going to come around, and he's going to be just a great star for them this season. And at RB13, I'm willing to take that gamble. Right.
Well, and especially you mentioned earlier, if it's like touchdown only leagues or touchdown heavy leagues, like that's I think that'd be a nice spot for a Derrick Henry, because if you're the Ravens, and look, I hope I have put all the ill will football wise on the Ravens from this Browns angle here, Nate. Okay, boo! I hope everyone does terrible. But if you're smart, why would you risk Lamar Jackson physically? We saw what happened when he was finally healthy for a year. Why not get Derrick Henry back there, who is a bust with legs, at the 2-yard line, and have him do it? right? Or the short yardage. I'm with you there. That makes a lot of sense. My guy, I have one to avoid, and it kills me to do it, and because I get the fandom, and I have his autographed rookie card right up there, and I love him. This is a man's man, all-time Brown. You got to avoid Nick Chubb. You just have to, unless it's at the last round, 2-round pick. He's going to be reached for. I've seen in a startup dynasty we had guys reaching for him. I love Nick Chubb, but Nate, there's word it might be mid-October, late October, early November. Ooh. ACL, MCL tear. We also don't know. Okay, he comes back. How long does it take him back to get to the old Nick Chubb? Can he get back to the old Nick Chubb? That's where, as much as I love the guy, fantasy-wise, if I'm putting my, not on the heart but on the brain, you can't be drafting Nick Chubb and expect him to do anything for you.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Right now his ADP at RB29, he is falling. If he continues to fall as we get closer to August, I could see something with just an incredibly late, lottery ticket.
Sure. But if it's a guy who's going to be on your bench anyway, like if you're going to player X who is just going to sit there, or Nick Chubb, sure, then you pop him on the IR.
Right. Exactly.
Right. That's fine. One guy I do like here, and he's RB in PPR, I believe he's RB 34. How about little Zach Moss with Cincinnati? And this is a guy who really in Buffalo is just all right, him and Singletary, whatever. Really popped with the opportunity in Indianapolis. And I think with Cincinnati in a pass-first offense, there's not going to be the bell cow expectations. But again, he's going to get opportunity. Like Chase Brown's good, but there's no sense that I'm seeing or reading or hearing that they expect Chase Brown to be the bell cow. It's going to be a bit of a committee. But if you're going a little bit later, I think there's some opportunity for Zach Moss. He showed himself last year.
Yeah, absolutely. With that talent and with that, discount you get in the ADP, that's somebody, honestly, like if you're between Moss and Chubb, I would probably go for Moss.
He's going to be a day one player.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to be a day one player. All right, let's finish off with tight end. And for the first time in, forever, Travis Kelce is not at the top of most ADP rankings when it comes to tight end. That looks to be typically Sam Laporta, oh my gosh. And I wonder, Nate, does Sam Laporta's success, do you think, we know there's trends and people grasp onto it. We finally saw success out of a rookie tight end, a young tight end, where in the past it's like, well, there's a tight end, you got to wait till he's 27. And that wasn't the case. Do you see a situation where with some of these new young guys coming in with potential star power that it's like, oh, maybe we should be drafting tight ends earlier?
I really like Sam Laporta, and I want to say that he's not going to regress at all. Coming in as a rookie, he's established his, what his production is going to be. We know typically from that position it might be a little bit less, and so he might have overperformed, but you don't know. And so I really like him, but I'm a Lions fan, so I'm incredibly biased.
Yeah.
So
instant connections with your quarterback who's coming back. We're not talking about a rookie coming in. You have an established connection with a veteran. I love that tandem.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And he's got the sure hands when it counts.
Sure.
And he can get to the end zone, and that is incredibly important. But funny enough, so my guy here that I'm it's a value pick, and it's feels a little dirty saying it.
Oh boy.
But it's TJ Hawkinson at tight end 8, coming in, off of injury last year, and with a new quarterback, JJ McCarthy. I think he's going to be a safety blanket for a rookie rookie quarterback coming in, and at tight end 8, that's a pretty good value. I see him going up where it's hard for me to say Sam Laporta is not going to go down.
Right. And when Hawkinson was healthy last year, granted different quarterback with Kirk Cousins, guy was a stud. I think I had him on 3 of my 5 fantasy teams. I wanted all the TJ Hawkinson I could get. And until the injury bug got him, it paid off quite well. I'm with you on Hawkinson. again, rookie QB. There's always a gamble, but I'm with you on the value. I'm going to say David Njoku with the Browns right now, TE9 ish. So a top 12, so not necessarily a value guy, but when you have like an Evan Ingram going ahead of him, I would have David Njoku all day over Ingram with the fact that the Browns offense now is not the run heavy one it was under Kevin Stefanski before bringing in Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey was brought in to try to unlock, solve, fix, elevate Deshaun Watson. That means a lot of shotgun, a lot of empty backfield, a lot more passing. And who's the big dog? Who's an elite athlete who had a career year last year? That's David Njoku. His stock is still rising. I think David Njoku is someone I'd rather have over Evan Ingram, over Kyle Pitts, maybe even over like a Dalton Kincaid in Buffalo. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. He's a guy that I don't want to say he doesn't have a name because, you know, he is pretty well known, but I feel like he definitely flies under the radar and performs at a higher level.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a case where he had been inconsistent his whole career until partway through last year. We had that fire accident, Nate. Remember, the guy played with a burnt off face. Wild. He said it was almost like an awakening. And he came in and then became, not that he wasn't a good teammate before, because he was, but even more so total buy-in. It was just like a shot from God. They're like, boom, okay, now you're the man. And there's going to be opportunity. A lot of that, of course, depends on Deshaun Watson. And we'll polish off with this. Deshaun Watson of the Browns, quarterback. We know if you can get 2020 Deshaun Watson, 2019 Deshaun Watson, that's a top 5 fantasy quarterback. You're signing up for that all day. The problem was 2019, 2020 was a long time ago. And we're in year 3. He hasn't stayed healthy. He got suspended. He's coming back from a glenoid bone surgery. Where are you at fantasy-wise with Deshaun Watson?
Ooh, he's a guy I'm staying away from.
Right.
From a lot of reasons, mainly the health problems, some of the just optics problems, and I don't know. It's hard to trust a guy that has been having trouble staying on the field, and when he is on the field, hasn't looked the greatest. So that's where I'm at. Depending obviously on value. Last year I did have him on my team, so I'm not opposed to him, but just getting burnt.
Well, I'm looking here. Other quarterbacks right around his ranking. So one ahead of him, Aaron Rodgers. There's a dark horse guy again. Not that people don't know him, but heck, yeah, no one has a chip on his shoulder like Aaron Rodgers. Behind him, our old buddy in Cleveland, Baker Mayfield. Got the Funko Pop behind me there. Old Bake Show's behind him. Geno Smith of Seattle, Will Levis of Tennessee. Geno, I think, has come back down. The startup dynasty league I just joined, it was a 2 QB league. So I got 4 QBs. I put Geno in as one of the backups because he can produce. The 2 year ago, really whoa, out of nowhere, I think is gone. He's leveled into a nice sort of QB2, I guess, right? That type of area. Would you rather, if you're taking a backup quarterback, redraft league or whatever, would you rather take a shot on the roller coaster that could be Deshaun Watson, the dizzying highs or desperate lows and getting injured, or go with something a little safer like a Geno or a Baker?
Ooh, so now I like Baker Mayfield. He is one of those guys that I was on the fence with him instead of Jared Goff for this list. So I like Baker. I love what he's doing down there in Florida, and it wasn't that tough, but a small part of me enjoyed watching Baker against the Lions during that second playoff game, but we had to win.
You had to win, yeah.
Baker Mayfield, for me, at a quarterback 2 in a super flex, I would run Jared Goff Mayfield all day and be very happy.
What a combo. I missed out on Baker. I was going to draft him, and then someone took him 2 spots because they knew the draft. They knew I wanted Baker from his Browns connection, and they did to hurt me. So that's all part of fantasy football, right? You dig, try to punish your league mates. It's wonderful. All right, Nate. Now, hey, you do such great work. You and the whole IDP team, which is now, by the way, it's not just defense, offense is betting. There's everything there. Tremendous at IDP_plus on Twitter, right?
Yes.
And then the website. Check. If you're watching this, you've heard of IDP, guys, and IDP Plus, but check it out. The Fantasy Football Expo starts August 9, Canton, Ohio. You and Bob Long do such a phenomenal job. I was there a couple years ago. I'm hoping next year, I can't get down this year. I'm hoping next year I'm going to will my way down. But tell people what to expect and how to be involved if they want to be a part of this thing. Because I'll tell you, firsthand experience, folks, it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the tagline really says it all. The greatest weekend for fantasy football.
It is.
It's at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's a week after the Hall of Fame game. So, we're starting to feel a little warmth here in the northern Americas.
Yeah.
And so that's usually the trigger that the Expo is coming. Football is around the corner, and it's a 1-2 punch for me. You've got the Hall of Fame game, and then you've got the Expo, and that starts the season. And it's 3 days of just great friends. You get to meet and hang out with a ton of people in the fantasy football industry, from the tippy top all the way down to the small creators. You've got speaking events. You go learn more, get better, sharpen your skills at fantasy football, as well as you can draft. There's draft night out, which IDP Plus has joined with IBT Media to create a IDP league within draft night out. So if
nice.
You go to IBT Media's website and you're coming to the Expo, make sure sign up and join the Lawrence Taylor division and play IDP with us. We've got some special extra prizes to go along with it and everything. But it's a great event. It's a convention, so you're coming in. There's a whole Expo area, so you get to meet all of these creators that have booths.
Yeah.
This year we've expanded
giveaways, all sorts of stuff.
This year we've expanded to also include sports betting. So on Saturday, there's a whole sports betting event with a ton of creators in that space coming in. So learn how to, bet properly and those kind of things, and then learn how to play fantasy properly. And then each night is capped off with a get-together. Friday in the park, which usually we have a Browns game on that we're watching from the preseason. And then there's just... there's a bar right there. Food,
cornhole tournament. Just a great, meet up and get together and hang out. And then on Saturday, the party is actually in the Hall of Fame Stadium. Yeah. So
you get to get on the field, go into the back area. There's food trucks and vendors and there's a lot of alcohol that flows through there, and
if you choose to partake, yes.
If you like to, or there's soda, plenty of options. But it's just a great time. And
you can tour the Hall of Fame too.
Yeah, go tour the Hall of Fame. I can tell you that every year I go, and I can go again. There's so much to it. It's so big. Yeah. 3-4 times is not enough to see everything. There's still things that I want to go back, check out again, take pictures with the new bus that come out. Because it's an amazing time. So go to thefantasyfootballexpo.com and buy your tickets. If you're listening to this, you're probably in Cleveland, and it is a 1.5-hour drive to Canton, Ohio.
No more than that. Yeah. And beautiful area, the village and everything. It's I'm so disappointed I didn't get down last year, and I thought maybe this year, and the schedule didn't work up next year. I'm gonna make it back down, hang out with. We have the bourbon bar and all that. We'll have a couple sips together, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a must have.
Absolutely. Well, that's gonna be a lot of fun down there. thefantasyfootballexpo.com. Check out IDP guys, IDP Plus. Nate, hey, that was a lot of fun, man. Fantasy drafts will be here before we know it. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to
talk to you later. There he goes, Nate Cheatham from IDP guys, IDP Plus, and the Fantasy Football Expo. I'm telling you, I got right there. You can see a little down there, a little Fantasy Football Expo coaster thing. I popped it. It's great. It really. Bob, Long, Nate, the whole crew. Friend of show, Grant Gillen's down there. He's always out there from IDP guys. Just a great time. So there you go. Fantasy football questions. Hashtag Ask Andy. That time of year, it's coming. Hashtag Ask Andy. Leave a comments, question here in the show. Click subscribe. Notifications. Don't miss it. Click like. We need those. Share the show. And of course, on X at AndyMC81, at SickPodBrowns, Instagram and TikTok as well, at AndyMC Sports. Leave those fantasy football questions, and of course, always talking Browns. So big thanks to Nate, to producer Jimmy. I'm Andy. You got your fantasy football knowledge. You got your updated Browns news. So we will talk to you next time. And as always, go Browns!
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.